Welcome to the Creative Mind Smart Money podcast, where we turn financial confusion into creative confidence. I'm Samantha Eck, bookkeeper and fractional CFO for creative entrepreneurs. Each week, I'm sharing my financial expertise and actionable strategies to help you build a thriving creative business. Plus, you'll hear from industry experts who bring fresh perspectives on growing your business beyond the numbers. Because building a successful creative business starts with strong financial foundations. Your next chapter starts now. You're listening to the Creative Minds Smart Money podcast, and I'm so excited because today, of course, is the first episode in my new space after moving and not being able to film for a while. I'm just so excited to get back on the podcast and chat and really get into one of my favorite topics ever, which is YNAB. I know a couple episodes ago I talked about YNAB and I was like, I'm going to do a deep dive into YNAB, and it's here. And I'm so excited for it because there's so much to talk about and so much to go into with YNAB, but we're going to really focus on like the high level of it. I will mention that it's not something I advertise, but I do help people get set up in YNAB and like fully grasp the concepts of YNAB, because some people get really overwhelmed with new systems, and I've helped a couple people do this and get really set up. So if that's something you're like, I love this app, Samantha, I want to use it, and you're just like, I have no idea where to start and you want some help with it, I can absolutely help you out with it. But if you're like a systems pro, I promise you this will be one of the best things you ever do for yourself. And a lot of people tend to try like Rocket Money or something like that. I like YNAB because it helps you to plan your money before it kind of even hits your bank, so that you know like where things need to be going so that you can allocate your money. Before I even got on YNAB, like me and my husband had no budget. We had no idea where our money went. We tried a bunch of different budgeting apps. We tried the Rocket Monies. We tried everything like that. But what I found a lot of the time was that those apps specifically were more like based on your spending. So it wasn't like you set up pockets, almost like YNAB does. It was like when you had spending. So let's say that month we spent $600 on groceries. The next month, Rocket Money would say, okay, well, last month you spent $600 on groceries, so this month our budget is $600 for groceries. And I'm like, that's great and all, but I would rather have like money that I put into that bucket where I'm like, hey, I have $600 for groceries. Now what? So to me, budgeting has always felt restrictive. Like before I even got into my whole money kick or anything like that, budgeting always felt restrictive. And I've always thought of budgeting as something where when someone brings up budgeting, I'm like, okay, well, if I put $800 in groceries, I can only spend $800. But that concept is so wrong. It's so limiting to what budgeting actually is. And a lot of people, again, they get anxiety because they're like, oh my gosh, like what happens if I overspend in this category or if I overspend in that category? Or a lot of people were like, oh, if if you have money in the bank account, that's all you need to worry about. But the problem with, and like, I honestly do believe in the power of a budget. Like every person, every business needs a budget because it's not just for specific people. Like when you have a budget, you identify where your money's going and you also identify like the trends of what you're spending. So it really does help you grow as a person, as a business owner. So again, this episode is so important because most budgeting systems, you know, are built for 9 to 5 employees. So they're built for people who actually have a full-time job and not necessarily entrepreneurs. And what I love about YNAB is that you can build it around your business, unlike other apps like Rocket Money or something like that, where it's not as business friendly. Like you could do it, but it's not as business friendly. So YNAB definitely changed the way I handled my personal funds. And then when I finally started to use it for my business, it just transformed everything about my business as well. So if you're like, I really just need a budgeting system that will actually work for me, then this is definitely one of the ones you're going to want to check out. So with most budgets, they assume consistent paychecks. So I'm just going to use an example. For example, I think Rocket Money, I can't remember if it does, but I know like Every Dollar by the Ramsey show as well does this, where they have the amount that you need to put in for how much you're going to earn in a month. And usually they're like, oh, you can estimate it. And then if you make more, you can have more in there. But the problem with that becomes your kind of forecasting. So when we're thinking of like CFO mindset here, when we forecast, we kind of make up numbers based on historical data or based on what we think we know is coming in. So if you had monthly recurring revenue and then we know that you're going to have like a big launch this month, we're like, okay, you're going to hit this target. Similar to those budgeting apps where they're like, okay, you have $3,000 coming in, you're going to sell your bed this month. This is what we're expected to make. But YNAB is really built for variable income, and that's specifically because it allows you to allocate your money as it comes in. So, yes, there's future planning involved, but the money that comes in, when the money hits your bank, that's when the real planning begins. So, it really does help you give every dollar that comes into your bank account a job instead of hoping that it lasts until your next client pays you. But if you've been following kind of what I'm saying with cash flow and things like that, you've probably been getting your clients onto a set like payment schedule, whether it's the 1st, the 15th, whatever it is. And then, of course, YNAB does support that true cash flow awareness, like what's available right now and what it needs to. And that's what I'm talking about, where it's so powerful because it'll literally show you like what you have in your bank that you can do with. So, yes, you want to give every dollar a job, but at that point in time, it's literally showing you what you can do with the money that you have in your bank account. Again, you budget based on what you have, not what you hope to earn. And that's the power here is because when we forecast and we're like, okay, we're going to earn this much. The truth of the matter is, what if a client doesn't pay? What if someone leaves? What if something happens? It's unpredictable, right? So you can try and plan and forecast and like say, okay, I'm going to have this much money all you want. But when you actually get the money in your bank account, it changes everything. And then, as well, this is a great way for managing a feast or famine cycle because, you know, we always have these ups and downs and slows and everything like that. So it's a great way to analyze that and understand it so that you know kind of what's coming and you have things covered in your bank account. So I know that with us, like YNAB has taught us to like put aside money for certain things and things like that. And I know budgeting apps are like a dime a dozen, but I swear, if you even give YNAB a try and you wholeheartedly just put your heart into it for like a month or 2 months, it's going to change the way that you see budgeting. I promise. And it works for business and it works for personal. And you can have up to I think unlimited budgets with YNAB when you pay for it. If I'm not wrong, I might be wrong. So you before I used to have our business and personal are separated in the budget. Now I kind of have lumped them together because it's really nice to just see them together. Still put separate bank accounts, but then when I transfer money back and forth, it's just really easy to say, okay, I transferred money here and I transferred money here, as well as making sure that if I need to transfer money to my business or to my personal, I know that I've already got that covered. Again, when we get into this, are we talking about personal and business budgets? Do we keep them separate? If you're going to do and keep them visible on the same page, but with your separate bank accounts, you can do that. You can connect both of your business and your personal bank account and then keep them on the same page. Or you can create a separate budget if you just want to keep them completely separate and have those separate line items. You can create groups, which is what I did. I grouped all my Firestorm expenses so I know exactly what I have to have. One of the things that I love about YNAB, it's where you set up your categories. So let's say you have an annual subscription to HoneyBook or Dubsado and you paid that $400. Now in YNAB, you would go in there and you would set up that subscription to say, okay, I paid $400 to Dubsado. A year from now, I need to pay another $400 to Dubsado on this exact date. What YNAB is going to do is it's going to break down the money you need to set aside monthly so that come next March, next February, next year, whenever it is, you have enough money like stocked up in your bank account that you can pay that without having to stress about it. And that is exactly what I love about it because it's all about allocating the money to what's important. And of course, you don't have to fill that category. I think that's very important as well. So the whole process and point of YNAB is how you set it up is you set up it based on categories. So you think about everything that you spend money on. Groceries. If coffee is one of them, absolutely coffee. Taxes, an emergency buffer fund, software, education, whatever categories you want to set up. Like I said, I think I talked about this in another podcast, not on this podcast specifically, but if you want to set up a fund for coffee, you build that into YNAB and you make that purposeful. You give every dollar that job. So then, when you get money in, you make sure your subscriptions are covered and you still have $20 left over. And you're like, I'm going to put that $20 in my coffee fund. You have $20 you can spend completely guilt free because all of your expenses are covered. I know this is going to sound crazy because I'm trying to explain an app to you in words instead of being able to show you. I might even do like a YouTube walkthrough of this at some point and just show you how to set up YNAB because I think it's so important and I absolutely adore YNAB. I don't think I'll ever change. I've tried to change apps. There's one called Monarch Money that I tried to change to and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for my brain. YNAB works so amazingly. And you know what? I want to say this as well. It might not work for your brain because I think that every budgeting app is built for certain people of a certain mindset or a certain brain. And so this one might not work for you, but I just want you to give it a wholehearted try. And I think they have a 30-day trial, and I would love that for you. But again, like I was talking about, so YNAB helps you plan for those big expenses, and it also complements your bookkeeping setup. It does not replace things like QuickBooks or Xero, but it works with it and helps you to identify what you have left over. So for example, at the beginning of the month, like I've told you before, all of my client payments come in on the first of the month. What happens is when that money finally hits my account on the third or the fourth, I will go into YNAB and I will allocate the money to all of the categories, making sure that every single expense that I have that I know is coming out that month is covered. From there, I will say, okay, do I want to allocate extra money anywhere? If I say no, then that money comes to me, or it goes to taxes, or it goes to whatever category that needs to be filled. So it's very important to kind of look at that. Okay, so we've talked about what the app is, what the benefits are of it, things like that. But we want to talk about why budgeting is not restrictive. And I think we've had an app on budgeting before and smart budgeting, but I want to let you know that budgeting isn't a punishment, it's giving yourself permission. So when I'm talking about when we put that extra $20 in that coffee fund, like I said, you now have 20 extra dollars that you can just spend. There's no restriction there. So it gets you out of this narrative where you're thinking, okay, I'm not good with money. I don't have money in the bank account. And it encourages you to reassign your money. So let's say you have a flexible category, and I'm just going to use a personal category because this is the easiest to talk about. Let's say you have a flexible category like groceries, and you assign $300 to groceries. Sometime during the month, you spend another $100 in groceries. The point is not to be restrictive, it's now to shift money elsewhere. So let's say that you spent $100 less in gas. That $100 less that you spent in gas will now get allocated to groceries to cover that overage. So you see how I'm saying it's not restrictive? It's more about just reassigning that money to wherever it's needed, going with the flow, but also looking at it and saying, okay, I want to put $400 in groceries. I'm going to try and only spend $400 in groceries. Again, it's not trying to say, okay, I can only spend $400 in groceries. It's saying if I go over $400, I need to bring in money from elsewhere in my business, in my personal life to cover that money. It just helps you feel so in control. It doesn't give you a lot of guilt and it just keeps your mind clear. It's that whole point of intentionality that I'm talking about, that's what YNAB is going to give you. One of the things that I want to talk about that I've talked about in a lot of other podcasts is some of these money traps that I want to talk about now and what YNAB helps you avoid. I have heard people say before that they forgot about yearly subscriptions. With YNAB, it's hard to forget about it because it's already there and it's telling you to allocate money to it monthly so that you have it for an annual subscription. You don't have to. I want that to be clear. You really don't have to allocate that money or those subscriptions if you don't want to. If you're like, I'll just get to it next year, you don't have to do that. But it's really good because it helps you to track those subscriptions you sign up for. So if you sign up for a new subscription and you have a 30-day trial and you know that the subscription is going to cost you $14.99, put that in your budget right away and say, okay, $14.99. And then when at least when you're allocating money, you'll see that and be like, "Ooh, do I still need this?" type of thing. It helps you to calm yourself in April because you're already putting money aside in your account. Oh, well, just because I'm putting that money aside in my account doesn't mean that I won't spend it. But I think that's where I really love to go into YNAB and look at YNAB, not really necessarily look at my bank account and say, okay, I have $300 left over in this account. Do I have money I can shift in the budget here? Is it because it gives me that opportunity to be like, okay, I don't have the money, I can't spend it. And that's where we're talking about that emotional spending. You're more likely to curb that emotional spending because you're going to look at that and say, okay, well, I don't actually have that money to spend in this area. Okay. So, some final pieces of advice for you when it comes to YNAB and if you're going to give it a shot. First of all, start slow. Don't try to be perfect. The whole point of this is to observe your spending habits, see what's going on, and see what's coming in and out of your business, out of your personal life, so that you can analyze it. The first 30 days are the learning curve. You're going to have to learn how to use it. It's best probably to start it at the beginning of the month so that you can work your way through a month with a budget. Start with categories that you know you have to allocate money to, like your subscriptions. I will mention that if you link credit cards and you spend money on credit cards, that is now a part of your budget. YNAB doesn't discourage credit cards, but it treats credit cards as if it's your own money, which is something you absolutely should do. So if you're going to put your subscriptions on a credit card, it's going to tell you at the end of the month that you need to like cover that credit card, or that's money that's come out of your budget now. Like when you assign it, it's money that's come out of your bank account. You need to move that money to your credit card. I also want to say that you don't have to link your accounts right away. Manual entry works really great. I always tell my clients that I'm working with in YNAB that if you're going to start with YNAB, just look at your bank account on a weekly basis and add the transactions manually so that you can see where everything's going. You can also do it daily. I do mine daily because I love to see where my money's going daily and understand what's going on in my bank accounts and in my budget so that I'm consistently on top of it. But I do want to mention that as well. Budgeting is a habit. It's not a one-time setup. So you're going to set it up and you're going to have to repeatedly use it. You're going to have to repeatedly go into it and you're going to have to make it a habit. And then again, don't be afraid to move that money around. That's literally the point. If you overspend, it's not a moment to shame yourself. It's not a moment to say, oh my gosh. It's a moment to say, okay, I overspent here. I now need to move money from elsewhere to cover that spending. Otherwise, you guys, I could rant all day about it. If you guys are like, I want to see a YouTube video on this, I need to know how to use it, Samantha. Break it down for me in the simplest terms. I would absolutely love to do that. And then if you guys need more help from there, of course, we can work together on that budgeting side of things because I think that budgeting is just so much fun. And I want to help you guys set it up in a way that works for you. So if you find this episode useful, please rate and review the episode and share it with a friend who you know also needs help budgeting. Otherwise, I wish you all the best and we'll see you next week. Farewell, fellow travelers.